Presentation for Heritage for Property Owners and Managers by the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. Acknowledge that we are on the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people in Perth, and I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which you may be, wherever you are listening and watching this. So we're going to first start the presentation by talking about some heritage listings. There are several layers of listings which can get a bit confusing, but hopefully this will assist you in understanding the different aspects of listings and their implications for you as a property owner. So we've got several listings, as you can see on the screen. The first and highest listing is the National or Commonwealth Heritage List, and this is a statutory list managed by the Australian Heritage Council. Then we've got the state government heritage listings, which is in WA, the State Register of Heritage Places under the Heritage Act 2018, and that is managed and overseen by the Heritage Council of Western Australia and the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. And then the last layer is local government heritage listings, and that includes heritage lists and local heritage surveys. The bold text indicates the statutory listings, and I'll be concentrating in my part of the presentation on the state government and local government heritage listings. We've also got other listings in WA. This can include the National Trust list of classified places, the Register of the National Estate, statewide hotel surveys, and Art Deco significant building surveys, as well as other organisations' heritage listings. These listings means that a organisation or a group have identified a place as being of importance to them, and they are not a statutory list, but they are useful if you're looking at heritage places to understand other stakeholders interested in that place. And Inherit is our place of a go-to place, I should say, to see where any heritage listings for a place are listed. Inherit is a requirement. Well, a requirement of the Heritage Act is that places on the State Register and the information about those places are publicly accessible. And so Inherit is the database where this information is stored. And as you can see on the screen, it has lots of different parts of information, lots of different listings, and it's a one-stop portal for places and listings in WA. It does get a little confusing because, as you can see, it has lots of different listing types in the different boxes and different tables. So the main things to look out for is the statutory listings table at the top, and that tells you whether it's on the state register or a local government heritage list. The other heritage listings and surveys is also useful to look at. That notes where a place is on a local heritage survey. Inherit hasn't updated that terminology, so it'll be listed as municipal inventory under the 2018 Act. That's now called a local heritage survey. So now I'll move on to the State Register of Heritage Places. So what's the State Register? So this is the list of places which tell the story of the state, and it's the highest level of recognition of heritage in the state. It captures places of state heritage significance, so they tell the story of the state's development of an area, of its migration, development of social services, or economic development, and many other themes. The state listings are maintained by the Heritage Council WA with assistance from DPLH and is protected under the Heritage Act 2018. And therefore, as a statutory list, development must respect the cultural heritage significance of that place. State listings are memorialised and on the property title, and the Heritage Council has an interest in the place, so They are a body that needs to be across any development of places that may occur. So how are places assessed for significance? So how do they get onto the state register? So state significance is assessed by considering various factors. Each place has its own unique combination of factors, which together make up its state cultural heritage significance. A simple explanation of these factors are: does a place demonstrate the evolution or pattern of Western Australia's history? Does it demonstrate rare or uncommon or endangered aspects of heritage? Does it have any information that will contribute to an understanding of Western Australia's history, or is it a representative example of a place, a class of places? Does it have any strong cultural or social or spiritual associations? Are any of the place's aesthetic characteristics particularly valued by any group in the broader community? Are there any special associations with a particular person or group or organisation and their work, and how that is important to WA's history? Does it demonstrate any high degree of creative or technical achievement? And a place may also be included on the state register without substantial physical materials. So it could be a ruin or it could be a site of a place. So once a place is assessed, and it will have more than one of those factors, history and physical description of the place is recorded and documented. And if it's a new place, it will be reviewed by the Heritage Council and recommended for inclusion or not to the Minister for Heritage. So what does it mean if you're an owner of a state-listed place? So this means that works can occur. However, the significant parts to the building, which are written down in the documentation about that place, need to be kept in place. We don't expect you to live in a house with a bathroom or kitchen which doesn't meet current needs. However, if there are important elements to those aspects of that house, they may need to be kept. And Chloe will talk more about this. So that's all I'll talk about with the state register, and I'll go on to the local heritage listings. So local government, local heritage surveys. So a local heritage survey is a detailed survey of places of local cultural heritage significance. So they tell the story of the local place, the local government area. It can include built heritage places, it can also include trees and landscapes, archaeology or demolished places. And it provides, a local heritage survey provides the background of why the place has cultural heritage significance, as well as the history of the place. So it's a survey of mini heritage assessments. So it includes why it's important, physical description of the place and its history. It tells the story, as I said, of the local government and why that is important, that place is important to its history and identity. And it doesn't provide statutory protection. So it's purely a record of places the local government think are important. It's a starting point for heritage place recognition, and it's also used to inform a heritage list or heritage areas which are afforded statutory protection under the local planning scheme. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. So how are these places assessed? Well, they're assessed on a very similar way to a state-listed place, and they are looked at by cultural heritage values of aesthetic, historic, social, scientific and spiritual values. You can also look at the different factors which are similar to the state-listed places. You also look at its rarity and representativeness and how it fits into the local area's history. So it could be an example of a particularly good Federation era house, or it could fit into a streetscape of a Federation era house. It could be really important for its social significance. There are also levels of importance to local heritage surveys, and they indicate how important that place is to a local government area. So it goes from exceptional down to little significance. These categories are used for consideration for a place's inclusion in a heritage list. And usually the threshold for consideration of that is at level 3, so it has some or moderate significance. Again, buildings, sites, machinery that are associated with a place, gardens, parks and trees are included. So what does this mean to property owners? So the place is included on a local heritage survey, but not on a heritage list. Consideration for the place's heritage is not highly considered, and there is more flexibility with works that can be approved. Normal building approvals and planning approvals are required for works. As the place has been identified as being of the cultural heritage importance to the local government, if a place is proposed for demolition or being significantly altered, you may be required to complete an archival record for the local government because they have deemed it is important for the cultural heritage of that place. And also, depending on the level of significance, you may have to show how heritage has been considered in the approvals for works, and certain parts of the buildings may need to be kept. This depends on the local government. So now I'll go on to heritage lists. A heritage list for a local government is established under the Planning and Development Act 2005. It identifies places within a local planning scheme area of a local government that are of cultural heritage significance and are worthy of built heritage conservation. Heritage lists are one of the ways that heritage is integrated into the planning system in WA, and this intersection between the Heritage Act with the Planning and Development Act. Therefore, heritage is a consideration in the decision-making for development proposals of places on the heritage list. Heritage lists do afford places for statutory protection of the local planning scheme. Therefore, you will have to have planning approval, and heritage significance of that place will be considered within planning approvals and development approvals. So any assessment of the place's heritage must be approved by the local government or the State Heritage Office if places are on both a local list and a state list. So how places assess for significance for a heritage list. So heritage lists are based on the local heritage survey, as I mentioned, and that's a comprehensive inventory of heritage places. So a heritage list is it's purely a list of the name of the place, the address, it's why it's significant, and that comes from the local heritage survey. And what does local listing mean for property owners? So if a place is included on the heritage list, consideration for the place's heritage will be considered in the planning application for works. Cannot stress that enough. Local governments may have planning policies relating to works to heritage places. However, decisions will be made regarding the understanding of the significance of a place and parts of the building's fabric that relate to that significance. These are important also when considering works to places on the heritage list within a heritage area, which is also a planning requirement. Places may be included in a heritage area, which is a group of heritage places, or the State Heritage Register. Works to places adjacent or impacting on a heritage place will also be considered, as they may affect the setting, context or character of the heritage place. Thank you. We'll now move on to the Heritage Grants Program.
Thank you, Alethea. My name is Fabienne, and I'm going to talk about heritage grants for private owners of state-registered heritage places. So the Heritage Grants Program is the Heritage Council's annual grants program with a budget of 1.221 million. The program is divided into two streams: the State Heritage Stream, which offers grants for state-registered places for conservation works and documentation, and the Community Heritage Stream, which is for interpretation and engagement projects for both state and locally listed heritage places. However, for private owners, the State Heritage Stream is the most relevant. Okay, so the State Heritage Stream is only open to private owners of state heritage places and places on the assessment program. If you're at all unsure of the status of your property, please check our online database Inherit, which Alethea mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, local listed places are not eligible for this program. So new owners who have owned the property for less than 3 years, assessment program places and local governments are only eligible for documentation projects. While we do offer exemptions to the 3-year ownership requirement, where the cost of repairs substantially exceeds the benefit to the owner. However, this is assessed on a case-by-case basis by the assessment panel, and there is no guarantee of approval. For this program, it is also a requirement that the place has current comprehensive building insurance. So within the state heritage stream, we have a number of categories: conservation works, major conservation projects, and documentation projects, all of which have different funding options. So starting with conservation works, this is the most common category and offers up to $50,000 in matched funding. So that's 50-50 each. This category is for physical conservation works, such as structural stabilisation, masonry repairs, roofing, and dam remediation. This can also include reinstatement of original significant features and protective measures, such as window coverings for protection from vandalism. So our example here is Glanville's buildings in East Fremantle. They were a successful recipient of the 2023-24 round and received just under $40,000 for the conservation of the eastern exterior limestone wall. Built in 1902, Glanville's buildings is a landmark structure on Canning Highway, constructed for Henry Glanville, a prominent chemist of the time. The ground floor initially housed a pharmacy and a tailor shop, with the upper floors used as storage and as accommodation for the Glanville family. With enviable views to the Swan River, this place has undergone many minor changes over the years, with these latest conservation works helping to preserve its facade. So major conservation projects is the next category. This is a growing category, and we offer up to $100,000 in match funding. To be eligible for this, projects need to meet one or more of the following additional eligibility criteria. So that is reactivation of a heritage place for the purposes of heritage tourism, public benefit and enjoyment, demonstrates a response to natural disaster mitigation, and supports the continuation, development and sharing of traditional crafts and skills that will support future heritage conservation works. So this example is Success Hill Lodge in Bassendean. This is another successful recipient of the 23-24 round. The applicants received $100,000 for the reconstruction and conservation of the veranda. Now a private residence, Success Hill Lodge has had an interesting history, starting its life in 1896 as the Lockridge Hotel in the rapidly developing suburb of Bassendean. It then provided aged care for men through the Salvation Army's social welfare program up until 1947, and then as a psychiatric hostel to the early 1980s. As you can see, that the veranda is in quite a state of disrepair, and the works funded by this grant are only the first stage of conservation. So before we move on to our final category, I just wanted to run through some of the works which are considered ineligible, and these can include new additions or the installation of utilities such as air conditioning, general maintenance and gardening, demolition of significant fabric, tasks which have occurred prior to the execution of the grant agreement, and any works which are required by a heritage agreement. However, if you're in doubt regarding any of these, please contact us before submitting an application. So documentation projects are our final category, which we offer up to $16,000 on a 80-20 funding basis, with the Heritage Council covering the 80%. So this grant covers the following conservation documentation: the Conservation Management Plans, or CMPs. So CMPs are the main category, and this can cover developing a plan from scratch or updating an existing one. Conservation management strategies, which are probably the sort of next tier, which is a bit more in depth than a CMP. And sort of lesser known ones are the archaeological management plans or cultural landscape management plans. But either way, documentation is a great place to start. It's recommended that a CMP is done prior to commencing any conservation works, as this gives a holistic view of the place and enables tasks to be prioritised based on need and significance. So for places which are on the State Register, you can apply for both documentation and conservation work. So with the max possible grant being awarded is $66,000. A recent example here is the Whining Mission Group, who were a successful recipient of the 22-23 round and received the full funding of $16,000 for the development of a conservation management strategy and a structural condition report. So the Mission House and Winery were first constructed back in 1892 and had strong connections with the New Norcia Benedictine community. As the Benedictines were not able to import wine at the time, the Whining Mission provided altar wine for Catholic churches across the state. The development of the sort of key planning documentation will best allow the current owners to ensure that this piece of history is preserved for future generations. So previously, all projects funded by the Heritage Grants Program must be overseen by a heritage professional, such as a heritage architect or structural engineer, depending on the project. The role of the heritage professional is important where there are project decisions that have the potential to impact on the cultural heritage values of the place. In some cases, these are subject specific and can be made by a professional with relevant trade skills, such as a stonemason or paint specialist, but the majority of heritage professionals will be heritage architects or heritage engineers. However, this year, the focus of the heritage professionals is more placed on demonstrated need. And so we have removed the requirement to having a heritage professional for the following projects. So that includes minor projects which do not involve removing or altering significant fabric, and this includes painting in the existing colour scheme. Cleaning, which is low pressure, non-abrasive and non-chemical. Repair of missing or deteriorated fittings or building materials with like for like materials, including roof replacement. Fitting of protective screens to windows, and any other small scale projects where the materials and processes have been clearly addressed through the development application. So where the engagement of a heritage professional is considered necessary, we are funding their fees on an 80-20 funding basis, again with the Heritage Council covering 80% of the cost. If you're not sure where to find one, try our Heritage Specialist database in Contact. So this year's Heritage Grants Program will open in early June using the department's new online grant platform, Smarter Grants. The online platform streamlines the application process, allowing you to save as you go and upload supporting documents direct to the form. You can also share your application with your nominated heritage professional. However, just to note that all parties using it must register with Smarter Grants to start the application. So the application period closes on Monday, the 5th of August, and we expect the successful recipients to be announced by late October, early November this year. And as always, we encourage you to get in early to discuss your project with our team just to make sure you iron out any issues before the actual application period starts. And that's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chloe Parkinson. I'm a Senior Heritage Officer and I work in Historic Heritage Conservation for the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage. I'm also an architect. Today I'm going to talk to you about the care and development of heritage places, what work needs to be referred to the Heritage Council and what doesn't. So what is heritage and why do we protect it? Heritage is the full range of our inherited traditions, objects and culture. It is expressed through places, buildings and landscapes, public parks and gardens, infrastructure, monuments, public art, and more. Heritage places, objects and stories can give our lives meaning and purpose. They create a strong and enduring sense of community identity. Work or development to places that are on the State Register of Heritage Places, or those under consideration, are guided by and protected by Section 73 of the Heritage Act. Having a heritage listing means we can't do anything. So quite often we get this exasperating statement from owners of heritage places. This is a common misconception. Heritage places need to be used and maintained in order to stay viable. Heritage places also need to change to adapt to contemporary needs. The objective of the Heritage Act is to encourage and facilitate the conservation, continuing use, development and adaptive reuse of places of cultural heritage significance. You might feel that having a heritage listing constrains you, but there are likely to be many opportunities for changes and additions that meet your needs but do not impact adversely on the building's significance. Changes just need to be in harmony with the cultural heritage significance of the place. It needs a bit of thought, and sometimes you need to think outside of the box. Some work needs referring to the Heritage Council and some doesn't. A referral is an application to modify or change a heritage registered place. So what work or proposals need to be referred? Alterations and additions, new buildings, conservation works, demolition or relocation, excavations, re-roofing if not like for like, renewable energy systems like solar panels, signage if it is not temporary, interior works and changes of use. If in doubt, please ask us. What works or proposals are exempt? What can I do to my property without referring it? You do not need to refer your property for routine repairs and maintenance that replace like for like, so as long as they don't change the appearance of the place or impact on its significance. Low pressure, non-abrasive and non-chemical cleaning. Gardening, which does not involve a major alteration of the layout, contours, structures, significant plant species or other significant features on the land. Replacement of utilities using existing routes such as conduits and voids. Temporary signage, fencing and scaffolding. Digging a new grave or the erection of a monument of material sizes and form that are consistent with the character of the place. These exemptions are prescribed in the Heritage Regulations 2019, Regulation 41. However, if you have any questions or are unsure, please ask us. So, the common questions. Can I demolish my heritage property? No. Full demolition of a significant or contributing building of a state-listed place will not generally be supported. Do I need a referral for routine maintenance and repairs, like fixing my gutters and downpipes? Just like any building, heritage places need routine basic repairs and maintenance. You do not need to refer your property for routine repairs and maintenance that replace like for like, so long as you do not change the appearance of the place or impact on its significance. You can replace your gutters and downpipes. You can replace rotten bits of timber. You can replace broken glass. You just need to remember to replace them with like for like. Can I paint my place without a referral? Yes. You do not need a referral for routine repairs and maintenance when replacing like for like. So as long as you do not change the appearance or the colour of the place or impact on its significance. However, if you are thinking about repainting the building in a different colour from its current colour or painting or sealing previously unpainted surfaces, you would need a referral. There are policy and practice notes for painting heritage places accessible on the DPLH website. And if you have any doubts or unsure, please ask us. Can I re-roof my building without a referral? Yes, if replacing exactly like for like. Same material, same colour, same size metal sheeting or tiles. There are guidelines for corrugated roofing. If you have any doubts or unsure, please ask us. Can I put solar panels on my roof? Yes, but you do need to refer it and follow the guidelines. It needs to be designed and installed in a manner that minimises negative impacts on the heritage place and its visual setting. It is not to be the dominant visual element of the building. It needs to be installed where they are least visible from the street, such as a secondary elevation. There are guidelines for renewable energy systems. And again, if you have any questions, please ask. What about trees and landscape? Can I chop down a tree? General gardening or landscape maintenance does not need to be referred, but you do need to refer major alterations to the landscape, significant plants or tree species, or other significant features, and groundworks if there is any danger of disturbing archaeological sites. If you have any doubt, please ask us. If I build an extension or addition to my property, does it have to look the same as the existing heritage building? No. New work, meaning changes or additions to a place, needs to respect the heritage significance. It needs to be identifiable as something new. However, while some people believe that new work needs to reproduce the appearance of the existing heritage building, the Heritage Council's principles encourage high quality and contextual design which avoids replicating historic forms and details. We encourage owners to discuss the proposed development with our Heritage Development team at the concept stage and prior to lodging the formal application with the decision maker. This is Penhurst House in East Fremantle, a two-storey late Victorian residence constructed of limestone masonry with large timber verandas, built in 1847. As you can see, it clearly has a contemporary addition, clearly identifiable as new, but respecting the heritage of the original house. What materials can I use? Traditional materials and construction techniques are preferred for use on heritage buildings. This is not just about a desire to make it authentic and have it look right. It's also because, when properly used and applied, most traditional materials work well with the existing building. The preference for traditional materials does not prevent the use of modern materials where this is appropriate. What about lime mortar? And not lime with added cement, should be used to repair mortar joints that were originally made with lime. Galvanized steel should be used to repair a galvanized roof. Traditional joinery techniques and not epoxy resins should be used to repair existing joints in timber sections. Asbestos, constantly a problem in many places, not just heritage ones, and there are now many modern suitable alternatives, such as fibre cement board is recommended when replacing asbestos sheeting. What sort of changes can I make to my heritage property? Heritage places need to change to adapt to contemporary needs. There are likely to be opportunities for changes and additions that meet your needs, but do not impact adversely on the building's significance. Is it general maintenance? Is it like for like? Check if the work you would like to do needs to be referred. It is recommended you discuss your plans with the Heritage Council prior to lodging any development application. And some people choose to engage a suitably qualified heritage consultant to assist with developing plans and applying to the councils. The Heritage Council and the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage has a range of useful publications on its website. Guide to Developing Heritage Places, Heritage in Action series such as Adaptive Reuse and Residential, technical series, repairing of tongue groove boards, removal of paint, cleaning stone masonry, and practice and policy notes such as those for corrugated metal roofs, painting heritage places, and renewable energy systems. Also, check with your local council. Many have their own heritage guidelines. So, if you have any doubt or unsure, please ask us. Thank you.